Hello, I hope you're doing well. This is me making a soap with the theme of Campfire. It's a little bit of a fail soap. I mean, it's not a terrible fail, but it definitely didn't meet my expectations or my goal designs. It was a slightly different recipe, which is why I'm melting everything here. And for some reason, I decided it was a good idea to add rosemary oleoresin to this soap. It was obviously not a very smart idea because the reason why you want to use rosemary oleoresin is because it's a natural way to prevent DOS or dreaded orange spots in your soap, which occurred from any of your oils oxidizing. This soap is going to be colored mostly in black, so even if it developed yellow spots, I don't think you could see them. Oils are at 91 and light water it's at 86 Fahrenheit. In Celsius that's 30 for the light water solution and 32 for the oils. So first I'm adding the light water solution to the oils and I'm going to stir it initially before attempting to use the stick blender. This was going to be my submission for the Sub Challenge Club. It was the challenge about doing pointy layers, which by the way, it was a challenge made by, or I guess instructed by 3 Marie supports. Because I did not achieve any pointy layers, I did not submit this soap for that entry. Instead, I made a different one. The fragrance that I chose was Energy from Wholesale Supplies because it's supposed to behave well and it's supposed to keep the batter fluid. However, I did not like it that much. It was very sweet, like a candy. Actually, my nephew and niece told me that it smelled like the Nerds candy. And here you can see that the batter is like a dark brown, and that's because of the rosemary oleoresin that I'm using. I only use short burst with a stick blender and I stir it a lot until I reach a state of emulsification, not quite trace yet because I still needed to add the fragrance. And as you can see, the light turned the butter like a red, orange, burgundy color, brownish perhaps. After this, I just measured the fragrance and I added close to the 2 ounces that I needed. And then I stick blended it slowly to in burst and stir it a lot so that it actually did not reach trace yet. It still stayed in an emulsification status. So at this point, I went ahead and split the batch into the colorants. And most of it, like I said before, it's going to be black, but I needed about 8 ounces of soap batter for the red, about 5 for the yellow, and like 3 or so for the orange. And I knew this because I had sort of calculated how much soap batter I would need doing a crazy diagram that I'll show you now. This is not a sketch necessarily of the soap because I didn't want it to look all like pixelated. It was more to calculate how much soap to use for each color because I didn't want to make too much extra of this soap batter. The idea was for this to look like flames of fire and that the pointy layer technique will give it that look. However, that didn't work out. I think though that the colors still give you the idea, and especially when you see the embed that goes on top. Now, when I was making this soap, I remember watching recently a video by Zoe and Shay where she makes campfire soap, and she also made like birch wood pieces to go at the bottom of it. It was a cool looking soap. If you're interested, I may put a link in the description box for you to watch. One time for one of my birthdays, we did a campfire sort of theme, in our backyard, my mom's house backyard, we set up a fire, and then we bought marshmallows, and we bought franks and hot dog buns, so that everybody pretty much had to cook their own meal. They had to warm up their beef franks, and we had the fixings for the hot dogs. Right now I am at a very light trace, which in theory meant that I was ready to pour the soup and start attempting the design. So I did. Perhaps I needed to be at a slightly heavier trace, or perhaps I should have used, instead of this tool that I'm using, maybe I should have used the funnel pitcher, because when I did it the second time with the funnel pitcher, then it worked. But when I use a different tool, even if it was curved at the bottom, it didn't work. The idea is just to start doing this, pouring the soup and keep moving it so that it goes into different layers, and as it goes down it creates the peaks. But I could feel even at this point that I was just putting the soup on top of it, that it didn't feel like it was sinking. It just felt that it was just resting on top of the black, and that's the way it felt with most of the other layers actually. And then I messed up the order in which the layers went. Like it was supposed to go red, yellow, orange. Just not because that's the way fire looks, but just because it will make the most contrast. And one of the advices when you do this technique is to use contrasting colors so that the pointy layers stand out more. Well, I put the orange in the wrong spot, and it also altered the proportions of how the fire is supposed to look. In most campfires I've been to, there's always somebody playing a guitar, so I'm gonna leave you with some guitar music. So it's the next day, and I've unmolded the soup, and I'm about to cut it. It's a little bit too early to unmold. You can see my corners got messed up, but I was actually curious to see if I got any pointy layers. Nothing pointy here. It looks actually kind of funny. And I can tell you, I don't think I'm gonna have any pointy layers.